Michael, of course, said with the enthusiasm of a man agreeing to let his neighbor borrow a lawnmower. The air grew tighter than his starched collar. I should have seen it coming. Finally, he set down his fork. Big mistake, because that meant it was speech time. James, he said, like he was about to fire me from a job I didn't have. We should discuss something. About the wedding. Sophia froze, fork midair. Michael leaned back like a king in his court. My guests are influential. Tech execs, venture capitalists, city council members. This isn't just a celebration. It's a networking opportunity. Translation. Screw love. This wedding's a LinkedIn convention with flowers. I need to be direct, he said, clearly relishing it. You're a waiter. My guests move in different circles. Your presence would be problematic. The silence was so heavy I could have bottled it and sold it as paperweight material. Sophia snapped. That's my father. Michael, smooth as poison honey, and I respect that. But this wedding is an investment. I won't risk my reputation because of misplaced sentimentality. That was it. The knife twisted. I finally found my voice. I raised Sophia. I worked double shifts, paid her way through education. Michael didn't flinch. Admirable. But this is reality. You serve food. My guests create jobs, fund startups, influence policy. Do you really think you belong in that conversation? The room blurred. The blood roared. Aunt Mary shifted in her seat, like she wanted to dissolve into the chandelier. Michael stood. Let's continue this privately. And so we did, out on the terrace, overlooking his empire, while workers below arranged white chairs that probably cost more than my rent. He leaned on the railing like he owned the skyline. Beautiful view, isn't it? $2.3 million for this house. $200,000 for the wedding. I nearly choked. $200,000 on flowers, on photographers, on dresses that cost more than my entire existence. I told him about Sophia's college, the years I broke my back for her, the sacrifices, and he cut me off. That was then. This is now. She's my responsibility, and your presence at this wedding would be an embarrassment. The words burned. Oh yes, nothing like being told you're an embarrassment at your own daughter's wedding to really warm the soul. I looked down at the gift in my hands, my father's watch, which an hour earlier had felt meaningful. Now, it felt about as significant as a free pen from the bank. You can't just... I began. I can, and I will. Oh, brilliant. Michael had gone full Bond villain. He stepped closer, voice lower like he was about to reveal state secrets. Do you understand what this day means? Senator Williams will be there. The mayor. CEOs whose companies could change Sophia's future. And you want to what? Serve them drinks? Through the glass door, Sophia paced, face all twisted with worry. But God forbid she intervene. No, let Dad just get emotionally steamrolled on the terrace. Character building, isn't it? She's my daughter, I said. She's my fiancée. Michael shot back, like he just played the trump card in a particularly smug round of Uno. His voice was final. And I won't let you turn her wedding into a charity case. Family sentiment? Please. This wasn't about love, or vows, or joy. It was about Michael's Rolodex of very important people. Below us, the rows of white chairs multiplied, neat as tombstones. Each one a reminder of the seat I wouldn't be allowed to fill. Fine. The words slipped out, barely audible, though loud enough for him to smirk. Yes, smirk. With the satisfaction of a man who just successfully bullied someone out of existence. I'm glad we understand each other, he said. Of course he was. He probably had a spreadsheet called How to Systematically Humiliate James. I turned to the door, caught my reflection in the glass. Old, defeated, and carrying a gift no one wanted. Michael remained at the railing, no doubt rearranging the seating chart in his head. Senator Williams here, the mayor there, and James in the bin. Thank you very much. James. His voice stopped me cold. Leave the watch. Sophia shouldn't be burdened with complications. Burden? That word sat like a rock in my stomach. I gripped the handle, gift box burning in my hands. Without looking back, I stepped inside. Past Sophia's questioning eyes, Aunt Mary's tight-lipped concern. Out the door, straight to my car. Dad, wait! Sophia caught up with me. It's fine, sweetheart. Lie number 1. I kissed her forehead, still clutching the watch. Congratulations on your engagement. Lie number 2. I didn't look back. Couldn't. His words settled into my bones like a winter draft through broken windows. The drive home was like a tour of the class system. Michael's kingdom of manicured lawns and electric gates gave way to suburbs where people actually said hello to neighbors. And then finally my bit of town. Flats huddled together like pensioners sharing a blanket. My building had no marble foyer, no doorman, just fluorescent lights, peeling paint, and mailboxes that looked like they'd survived the Blitz. I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. Inside, silence. No chandeliers, no art. Just photos of Sophia. Birthdays, graduations. Christmases where happiness was stretched thin but real. The watch box sat on my table. Michael had called it worth something to a collector. Funny, I thought its real worth was 3 generations of Collins men. But sure, let's reduce it to eBay listings. I pulled out the old calculator buried in a drawer under bills and expired coupons. Tapped in the numbers. Tuition, 42 grand a year. Room and board, 18. Car, down payment 3. Deposit for a first flat, 2. My life condensed into a running total of blood, sweat, and tips. 200,000 pounds. 1 shift, 1 aching foot, 1 fake smile at a time. The phone buzzed. Sophia's name. Her voice thick with tears. Dad, I'm so sorry about tonight. It's okay, sweetheart. Lie number 3. I was on a roll. It's not okay. Michael had no right. You should be at my wedding. I closed my eyes, let her words wash over me like salt in a wound. Sometimes life isn't fair, Sophia, but I'll find a way to be there. How? Michael won't change his mind. Through my window, I saw the downtown lights. Bella Vista was out there, just another restaurant among dozens, where I'd spent 15 years fading into background. 15 years invisible. Don't worry about it. I told her, just be happy. That's all I've ever wanted. We hung up. Darkness crept into the room. Michael's voice echoed in my head. You serve food for a living, as if that made me less. As if carrying plates disqualified me from fatherhood. I opened my closet, pulled out the uniform. Black trousers, white shirt, black vest. To him, a costume of servitude. To me, tonight, it looked like armor. Because Michael was right about one thing. I was just a waiter. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. Waiters are invisible. We glide through rooms, overhear secrets, witness moments people think no one's watching. We're scenery. Essential but unnoticed. I held up the vest. Simple, sharp. Tomorrow I'd call Antonio. Ask a favor. Not as James Collins, father of the bride, but as James Collins, experienced waiter. The man who knew how to vanish in plain sight. Michael wanted me gone. Fine. He'd never even notice I was there. The watch box caught the light from my desk lamp. Gold surface gleaming like it had a purpose. Grandfather's timepiece. 3 generations of Collins men. Ticking away through birthdays, funerals, and countless disappointments. And now, it was about to time the most important event of all. A father reclaiming his seat at his daughter's wedding. Preferably before Michael had a chance to monetize the whole thing. For the first time that evening, I smiled. Which, considering the day I'd had, was about as rare as Michael saying something that didn't sound like it belonged on a business card. Saturday morning arrived far too early. Not that I'd slept anyway. My brain had spent all night rerunning Michael's greatest hits. You're an embarrassment. You're just a waiter. Do you really think you belong here? Honestly, if insomnia were an Olympic sport, I'd have won gold. By 7:30, I was dressed and driving to Bella Vista. The route felt familiar, but my nerves made it seem longer, like some depressing pilgrimage. The restaurant, empty in daylight, looked unsettlingly honest. No candlelight illusions, no buzz of customers. Just chairs, tables, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Stripped of all theater. Rather like me, really. Antonio's SUV was already parked outside. Good. This conversation needed to happen before the other staff arrived with their relentless optimism and TikTok gossip. Inside, Antonio was at the prep station, slicing onions like he was personally avenging every heartbreak in history. 20 years of friendship meant I knew his moods. Today, he looked like a man calculating whether to kill me or hug me. "You're early," he muttered without looking up. Saturday's shift started at 10. Couldn't sleep. I poured 2 coffees, adding his sugar automatically. Rituals are important when you're about to ask your best friend to help you gate crash your own daughter's wedding. "Antonio, I need to ask you something." He finally looked up, eyes carrying the weight of mortgages, bills, and the crushing responsibility of keeping a restaurant alive in a city that would happily charge you £7 for tap water if you let it. "What troubles you, my friend?" The words clung to my throat, reluctant. "Tomorrow is Sophia's wedding." "Ah, yes, at the big house in Hillsborough. Very fancy." He sipped. "You must be proud." "I am, but there's a problem." I leaned against the counter, carefully arranging words like they might explode. "Her fiancé doesn't want me there." The knife stopped. "What do you mean?" "He thinks I'm not good enough for his guests." "Too embarrassing." "Just a waiter," he said. The silence was so thick I could hear the fridge humming. Antonio set down the knife. His expression shifted from confusion to fury. The kind of fury only immigrants know, born from decades of being looked straight through. "This man," he said slowly, "told you not to come to your own daughter's wedding?" "Yes." Antonio's fist clenched. What kind of man turns away a father from his daughter's wedding? "Oh, you know," I said lightly, "the kind who cares more about business cards and bloodlines." I took a deep breath. "That's why I need your help." His eyebrows shot up. "What can I do?" "Hire me, just for tomorrow. One day, I'll work the wedding." Antonio blinked. "You want to work your daughter's wedding?" "Yes." "James, that's insane." "It's the only way to be there. Michael can't forbid a waiter. I'll be invisible, just part of the service. But I'll see her walk down the aisle. I'll hear her vows." Antonio shook his head like I'd just suggested we rob a bank with a butter knife. "This is not right. A father should sit in the front row, not serve champagne to strangers." "Sometimes we don't get what we should. We take what we can." Antonio returned to his onions. But now each slice landed with the force of a guillotine. "You really want this?" "I've never wanted anything more." Another silence. Delivery trucks groaned outside. Life, maddeningly, carried on as if mine wasn't unraveling. Finally, Antonio spoke. "The catering company handles the service. But I know the manager. Giuseppe Torino. Old friend." My chest tightened. Would he add me to crew? "Yes. He owes me favors." Antonio wiped his hands on his apron. "But James, once you start serving those guests, there's no going back. No dignity in retreat." "My dignity isn't in question here. His is." Antonio studied me, searching for doubt. He didn't find any. He never did. "Fine. I'll call Giuseppe. You'll work the wedding." Relief flooded me like hot coffee after a hangover. "Thank you. I won't forget this. You're a good man, James Collins. If that son-in-law of yours can't see it, that's his blindness." I finished my coffee, already rehearsing tomorrow. Black trousers, white shirt, bow tie if necessary, the armor of invisibility. What time should I be there? Setup starts at 11. He turned back to his prep. "And James, don't let that man make you feel small. You've earned your place in this world." Walking back to my car, I felt lighter. Tomorrow, Michael Thompson would learn a hard truth. Money can't buy everything. Some fathers can't be erased, no matter how much champagne you pour on the problem. The sun hit my face, warm, hopeful. One more day to wait. Back at Bella Vista, lunch service ticked by in slow motion. I moved to the dining room, setting tables with military precision. Round tables, evenly spaced, crisp cloths. 6 hours of normality, while my mind hummed with one thought. Tomorrow, I'd vanish into the crowd. Michael's perfect little world wouldn't even see me coming. Crystal glasses twinkled smugly under the chandeliers Antonio had splurged on last year, each table setting basically auditioning for the cover of pretentious Wedding Monthly. Napkins folded like origami swans. Silverware polished, so heartbreak as a mirror for the vain. Yes, Sophia's wedding reception was shaping up to be disgustingly perfect, assuming one was allowed to actually attend it, rather than loiter in the kitchen like an unpaid extra in someone else's fairy tale. Then I heard it. Sophia's laugh, nervous, sweet, the sound of someone clinging to joy with white knuckles. Lovely. Followed, of course, by the heavy stomp of Michael, a.k.a. Mr. Money Talks, but never shuts up. His voice barged into the room like it paid rent. The flowers should be there, not blocking the dance floor. Naturally, God forbid petals distract from his grand performance. I froze mid-tablecloth straighten. Brilliant. Of course they'd show up for a surprise inspection, because what better time to run into your estranged daughter and her power-drunk fiancé than while playing dress-up as a waiter. Then it happened. Dad. Her voice from the doorway. My chest actually remembered what smiling felt like. She looked radiant, even in casual clothes, radiant and stressed, like a bride to be holding together with caffeine and sheer panic. Behind her, Michael spotted me. His face went through the emotional cycle of confusion, recognition, and finally, did this man just crawl out of bed to ruin my big day? What are you doing here? He snapped, with all the subtlety of a car alarm. I stayed calm, waiter calm. Antonio asked me to help with setup. Translation, I've downgraded myself from father to bride to guy folding napkins, just to be in the room. Michael's face turned to granite. You can't be serious. Oh, he was serious. So serious, he probably had a spreadsheet for it. Sophia tried to mediate. God bless her, but Michael launched straight into meltdown mode. Your father is manipulating the situation, because apparently moving chairs now counts as psychological warfare. I smoothed another tablecloth. I'm here to work, nothing more. This is manipulation, he repeated, voice cracking, like a teenager who just found out his favorite band split up. You're humiliating me. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Perfect. Nothing says happiest day of your life, like watching your fiancé and your dad lock antlers over who gets to sit at which metaphorical table. Michael jabbed a finger at me like I was contaminated meat. He's doing this on purpose. He's playing the victim, forcing his way into places he doesn't belong. I looked at Sophia. I belong wherever my daughter is. Michael, finally dropping the whole polite society mask. Not anymore. She's my responsibility now. My wife, my event, my guests. And I won't have you skulking about in uniform, making me look bad. Ah yes, the holy trinity of Michael's universe. Money, appearances, and control. Sophia's voice broke. Dad, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I touched her shoulder gently. Don't worry. Your guests won't even notice I'm here. I'll just do my job. Your job, Michael sneered, is to stay away. This wedding costs more than you make in 5 years. Oh, the maths again. Because obviously, human worth is measured in receipts. I shot back steady. My pride isn't wounded. He laughed. A sharp, ugly laugh that made the cutlery flinch. Isn't it? Then why the charade? Because she's my daughter. And tomorrow, when she needs her father, I'll be there as staff, as background noise, as whatever it takes. Sophia cried quietly. Because what else can you do when the two most important men in your life are turning your wedding into a GCSE drama performance? Michael stormed out, oozing threat with every step. Sophia trailed after him, whispering apologies she never owed me. I told her not to worry, to just be happy tomorrow. Lies, obviously, but fatherly lies. I adjusted another chair, hands shaking now. His parting words echoed in my head. A warning, not a tantrum. And if there's one thing Michael doesn't do, it's idle threats. Hours passed. The dining room stood ready, smug in its perfection, while I polished silverware like a man trying to scrub doubt out of his own skull. Then Antonio emerged. Serious face. The kind of serious where you know something just snapped. He even sat down, which he never did during work hours. My stomach plummeted. Your son-in-law came back, he said. Of course he had. Michael wasn't done. Men like him never are. What kind of offer? I asked. already dreading the answer. Antonio leaned in. $5,000 cash to make sure you don't work tomorrow. I blinked. $5,000. That's more than Antonio makes in 2 months. And Michael tossed it around like pocket change. Apparently, the price of removing a father from his daughter's wedding was roughly the cost of one of Michael's ugly watches. I asked the only question that mattered. What did you tell him? Antonio's eyes hardened. I told him principals aren't for sale. And for the first time all day, I almost believed tomorrow might not break me completely. Antonio's eyes flashed, then came the storm. He started muttering about health inspectors, liquor licenses, city officials. Basically the holy trinity of things restaurant owners have nightmares about. My chest tightened. Brilliant. Michael wasn't just trying to buy Antonio's silence. He was threatening to nuke his entire livelihood. 20 years of sweat, sacrifice, and onions sliced at 6 a.m., all dangling by the thread of one man's ego. Antonio, you don't have to. I began. He cut me off with a raised hand, the kind of weathered, onion-scar hand that had seen more kitchen wars than Gordon Ramsay. You think I've survived 20 years in this business by bowing to bullies? Your son-in-law made a mistake. He showed me who he really is. Oh, great. Now Antonio was in righteous fury mode, which is much scarier than shouting. Shouting you can argue with. Quiet intensity? That's the stuff of legends and revenge films. What exactly did he say? I asked, because apparently I enjoy suffering. That you're obsessed, unstable, that letting you work would endanger his guest safety. Antonio's lip curled like he'd just bitten into expired fish. Then he added, and when insults didn't work, he doubled the bribe. 10,000. Like I'm some clueless immigrant who doesn't understand American values. Ah, yes, American values. Namely, slap enough zeros on a problem and it disappears. Unfortunately for Michael, Antonio wasn't raised on that particular gospel. The picture snapped into focus. Michael wasn't embarrassed by me. He was terrified. Terrified of what I might say, what I might reveal, how his shiny veneer might crack if his new in-laws saw the poor man lurking behind the curtain. Control was his drug of choice, and I was the withdrawal symptom. I'm sorry he threatened you. I said, threats? Antonio let out a laugh with all the warmth of a guillotine. Let him try. I have friends too. Not rich ones, but loyal ones. I went back to polishing silverware, my coping mechanism, apparently, while my brain tried to digest all this. Michael's desperation wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. So what happens tomorrow? Tomorrow you work. Antonio stood, final as a judge slamming the gavel. Joseph expects you at 11, and if your son-in-law wants trouble, he'll discover immigrants know how to fight back. The silverware gleamed beneath the lights, reflecting a distorted version of my own exhausted face. Tomorrow I'd be using these same utensils to serve Michael's VIP guests, floating through his perfect event like a ghost he couldn't exorcise. Thank you, Antonio, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he warned. Men like your son-in-law, they don't quit. Tonight, he's making calls, pulling strings. Tomorrow may not play out the way either of us expects. I surveyed the dining room. Chairs lined up with military precision, glasses sparkling like they'd been threatened, flowers arranged as if commissioned by royalty. All of it ready for Sophia's perfect day, while backstage the battle raged for the right to exist in her orbit. Let him make his calls. I muttered, tomorrow I'll be exactly where I belong. Antonio nodded gravely. Remember, James, we're not just fighting for tomorrow. We're fighting for the right to exist in the same world as our children. And just like that, the weight landed. This wasn't about one wedding anymore. It was about dignity, respect, the right to show up for the moments that mattered. Michael Thompson was about to learn that some fathers cannot be bought, threatened, or erased. I polished the last fork like it owed me money, turned off the lights, and whispered a prayer to the gods of patience. One more night to rehearse for the most humiliating, most important performance of my life. 22 hours later, the banquet hall gleamed like it had been scrubbed by angels on minimum wage. Chandeliers sparkled, roses cascaded like they'd been photoshopped, and every surface screamed money, money, money. And there was me, in my black vest and bow tie, tray of champagne in hand. Invisible, the help, which was, ironically, exactly the point. The first guest swaned in at 5 o'clock sharp. Tech executives in 1,000-pound suits, venture capitalists casually mentioning numbers that could solve world hunger, city officials who could probably get your parking tickets erased with a wink. Michael's people, the ones who mattered. Champagne, I murmured to a woman, whose pearls cost more than my annual salary. "Oh, how lovely," she cooed. "What an elegant affair. Michael certainly knows how to host." Of course he does. Nothing says romance like a carefully curated guest list of people who couldn't pick Sophia out of the lineup. Through the crowd, I spotted her. Sophia, glowing in her dress, radiant in that way only daughters can be when they're still hoping their father won't implode their wedding. Michael stood beside her, charming the guests with his carefully rehearsed laugh, though his eyes kept darting to me. That's right. Son, I'm not gone. I'm here, holding a tray and ruining your life one canopy at a time. An elderly gentleman in a tux strolled over. "Excellent service, young man. You're very attentive." "Thank you, sir. Appetizer." I offered, my smile more polished than silver. He took a salmon canopy, nodded approvingly. Not many waiters have such natural grace these days. Natural grace. If only he knew the years of practice behind this act, not in catering, but in surviving. Surviving humiliation, rejection, and still managing to stand upright. James has worked with us for years. Antonio chimed in from behind, like the proud stage manager introducing his best actor. One of our finest. The gentleman nodded. It shows. Proper service is becoming a lost art. Meanwhile, Michael's laughter rang out from across the room, but had that brittle edge to it. Each time his eyes met mine, I saw the calculation. When will he crack? When will he humiliate himself enough for me to win? I steadied the tray in my hands. "Sorry, Michael. If anyone's humiliating themselves tonight, it's you." "Excuse me. Could you help my grandmother to her seat? She's having trouble with her walker." "Ah, yes. The glamorous world of high society. Nothing screams exclusive event quite like a shaky Zimmer frame maneuvering between overpriced flower arrangements. Naturally, I abandoned my tray of bubbly like a dutiful servant in a Victorian melodrama and offered my arm. She smiled, all gratitude and warmth, calling me such a gentleman. Sweet. If only she knew that my parents had exited stage left decades ago, and my real education and grace under pressure came from performing for audiences that threw tomatoes if you miss a step. Character building, they call it. Therapy fodder, I call it. The dining room filled with Michael's carefully curated guest list. The creme de la creme of people who can ruin lives over brunch. They spoke about stock options and political appointments the way normal humans talk about whether it's going to rain tomorrow. Delightful. I spotted Sophia across the room, offered me a smile equal parts grateful, apologetic, and sorry dad married sociopath. In that moment, she looked exactly as she had at 5 years old, when she'd forced me to wear a plastic crown at her tea parties, because apparently fathers should look important too. If only she'd kept that energy now. Meanwhile, Michael was revving up at the head table, preparing for his toast like a dictator about to unveil his new flag. Yesterday's nervous wreck had transformed into today's smug overlord, smugly confident in the knowledge that money buys both champagne and respect. Spoiler, only one of those is true, and it's the champagne. I kept topping up glasses, my hand steady, my chest tightening, waiting for whatever self-congratulatory nonsense he was about to unleash. Sure enough, Michael tapped his glass and began. "Ladies and gentlemen, oh joy, here it comes." The man's voice carried across the room like he'd swallowed a TED Talk. He thanked everyone for being there, rattled on about colleagues, friends, values. The usual were also amazing drivel. Sophia beamed up at him. Bless her, glowing with that tragic bridal joy you only get before you realize your husband's main personality trait is tax evasion. And then it shifted. Michael's eyes locked onto mine, and his smile twisted, the speech morphing from a wedding toast into a public execution. Success in life comes from understanding your place, recognizing what truly matters. Oh, good. A morality lecture from a man who once yelled at a barista for using oat milk instead of almond. Guests began shifting in their chairs, sensing the storm. Then he dropped it. Take this man, for instance. His finger. At me. Because why celebrate love when you can roast the bride's father? James Collins. Just a waiter. Never amounted to anything significant. A man who peaked in his 20s and has been sliding downhill ever since. Yes, thank you, Michael. Very subtle. Nothing says class like humiliating your wife's father in front of an audience that spends more on cufflinks than most people on rent. Sophia went pale, the crowd went silent, and my champagne bottle suddenly weighed about the same as my self-worth, which, according to Michael, was hovering somewhere near dog walker at best. But he wasn't finished. Oh no, he was thriving. There are makers and there are servers, leaders and followers. People who matter and people who simply exist to facilitate the lives of those who do. Translation, look at me, I'm rich, therefore Darwin would love me. Guests stared at their champagne, like it might suddenly offer an escape route. Sophia whispered, Michael, please stop. But he was drunk on power and the sound of his own voice. So what did I do? Explode? Cry? Flip the table? No. I straightened my bow tie, smoothed my vest. Because when you've been publicly humiliated, why not look sharp doing it? And said, in the calmest, clearest voice, would anyone like more champagne? And oh, the silence. Delicious. The kind of silence that screams this man's just been verbally murdered, but also he's weirdly unbothered about it. Michael stared at me, waiting for anger, tears, something. Instead, he got flawless service. Because if I was going down polished, professional, and pouring champagne with more dignity than he could ever buy. Guests muttered their thanks. I carried on like nothing had happened, moving table to table, my every pore a tiny middle finger in liquid form. Michael remained standing, his cruel words dangling in the air like last week's washing. But somehow, my composure stole his thunder. Because nothing unsettles a man drunk on dominance more than realizing his victim is too busy serving hors d'oeuvres to actually care. An elderly woman near the window cleared her throat. The universal signal for this is deeply awkward, and I'd rather choke on the bread rolls than let this continue. Perhaps we should eat dinner now, she suggested. Ah, yes. The British solution to everything. Put food in your mouth until the feelings go away. Guests murmured agreement, eager to escape Michael's little kick the father-in-law monologue. Sophia dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, trying to keep her makeup intact. Because nothing says wedding memories like weeping quietly while your husband destroys your dad for sport. I reached their table last. Still professional, still unbothered, or at least pretending better than Michael had at his vow exchange. More champagne for the bride and groom? I asked, like nothing in the world was amiss. Sophia looked up, her eyes shining, her voice breaking. Dad, I'm so sorry. It's your wedding day, sweetheart. Nothing else matters. Yes, because apparently I've ascended to Zen Master status now. Michael narrowed his eyes, probably realized his attempt at public execution had only made him look like a petty little tyrant. Poor man. Imagine spending all that money on table settings just to end up the villain of your own wedding reception. The room buzzed with tension, the sort of forced small talk people make when pretending the Titanic isn't sinking under them. I slipped off to check on the kitchen, because what else do you do when your son-in-law turns into Voldemort with a champagne flute? 15 minutes later, people were still humming with discomfort. They ate, they drank, they laughed a little too loudly, like extras in a sitcom desperately trying to convince the audience the punchline landed. I kept working. Plates cleared, glasses filled, dignity intact. And then from the far wall, salvation or chaos, depending on your perspective. A young man in his 20s was ignoring his actual date naturally, and scrolling his phone, only half watching the Telly Antonio had insisted on installing for old Hollywood charm. Suddenly, he sucked in a breath so sharp you'd think he discovered oxygen for the first time. Oh my word, he exclaimed, loud enough to grab the room. He's on television. Heads swiveled. People blinked. The waiter, he clarified, in case the first round of humiliation hadn't been enough for one evening. Cheers, mate. Truly, your timing is impeccable. And there I was, me on the screen, 30 years younger, wearing a naval uniform, spouting lines with the sort of earnest conviction only youth and a decent script can give you. Oh yes, I remember that film, squeaked an elderly woman in emerald, her face lighting up like she just won bingo night. Such presence, such natural ability. Meanwhile, in the present, I was stacking plates. Presence? Natural ability? Darling, at this point my natural ability is balancing soup bowls while not stabbing my son-in-law with a dessert fork. The murmur spread, the room tilting on its axis. Phones came out, fingers flying across IMDb. Guests rediscover my filmography with the enthusiasm of archaeologists unearthing Tutankhamun's tomb. James Collins, someone read aloud, because apparently Googling isn't enough unless it performed like scripture. 7 major films between 1988 and 1995. Golden Globe nomination for Atlantic Crossing. Sophia's hands flew to her mouth, not with horror this time, but with dawning understanding. The penny had dropped. She finally saw her father not as the invisible man serving drinks, but as someone who had once been, well, visible, maybe even brilliant, and maybe, just maybe, someone who'd sacrificed more than she'd ever realized. And me, still clearing tables, still invisible, except, ironically, while being watched by the entire bloody room. Someone called out, respectful now, "Why didn't you say anything?" I met his gaze steady, unshaken, with the same quiet dignity I've been faking all evening. Tonight isn't about me. Cue the collective swoon. Oh, they love that. The fallen star turned humble servant. The man who had it all, and now carried trays without complaint. Honestly, the script wrote itself. Michael, meanwhile, was frozen at the head table, staring between the telly and me like he'd just discovered his wife's first husband was Elvis. His glass slipped, shattered on his plate, echoing through the silence like a starter pistol at his own downfall. Because here's the thing. The man who just spent the evening bragging about makers and leaders had been undone by the revelation that his insignificant waiter had already lived the very dream he was still desperately clawing for. Recognition, respect, legacy. And I didn't even have to humiliate him back. I just had to keep pouring champagne. The television, of course, kept rolling on, blissfully indifferent to the fact that my life was now the main course at this wedding buffet. Flickering black and white images of my younger, much handsomer self stared back, while the dining room rippled with whispers, gasps, and the frantic tapping of phones. 7 films between 1988 and 1995. Someone read out like they'd just unearthed the Dead Sea Scrolls. Golden Globe nomination. Yes, that's me. Once upon a time, I had cheekbones, a career and hope, then rent, nappies, and reality entered stage left. I set down my tray, untied my apron with the gravitas of Shakespearean death scene, and said, because apparently I enjoy theatrical timing. Yes, that's me in the film. I was once an actor. The crowd drank it in like free champagne. Phones hovered. Faces leaned forward, all eager to consume this plot twist. Sophia's eyes glistened, and for a moment she wasn't the bride of the hour, but the little girl who once forced me to wear a plastic tiara at her tea parties. When Sophia was born, I continued, because if you're going to make a speech, you might as well weaponize sentiment. I chose family. I chose love over the spotlight. Steady work over uncertain fame. And I've never been ashamed of serving others, of honest work that paid for her education and future. Translation. I gave up Hollywood to scrub champagne flutes so Michael could humiliate me at his own wedding reception. Life's funny like that. Sophia rose from her chair, veil swishing through the tables like she was parting the Red Sea. Dad, she choked out. Why didn't you tell me? Because, sweetheart, I said, taking her trembling hands in mine, the past doesn't define us. What matters is that I'm here, with you, on the most important day of your life. Cue mascara rivers down her cheeks. She whispered, you gave up everything for me. No, I corrected softly. I gained everything. I got you. And just like that, I'd out-sentimental a room full of venture capitalists. The place fell silent. Even the kitchen staff, normally immune to rich people's theatrics, had abandoned their pots to watch this live drama unfold. Then, bless him, an elderly man near the window rose to his feet and declared, "You're a true gentleman, sir." Well, that did it. Applause broke out like we just staged Les Miserables. Toasts were raised. Voices cried out, "To James! To real men who choose family." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, once an actor, always an actor. Give the crowd a line, and they'll clap like trained seals. Sophia threw her arms around me, her veil draping over us both like divine blessing, or possibly just suffocation by a tool. Either way, it looked poetic. And at the head table, Michael. Oh, dear Michael. Frozen, pale, champagne glass dangling like his last shred of dignity. He'd tried to stage manage his triumph, but the narrative had flipped, and now he was just a man who humiliated his wife's father, only to discover said father was a Golden Globe nominee. Congratulations, Michael. You've outdone yourself. The applause ebbed, leaving behind a room thick with respect and awkward admiration. Guests lined up to shake my hand, to gush about films I barely remembered making. Mr. Collins, a young woman said breathlessly, "I just found clips from Atlantic Crossing. You were incredible." "Thank you," I replied, perfectly composed. "But tonight belongs to Sophia and Michael." Yes, I even said his name, like handing him a live grenade with a pin already pulled. The groom shifted in his chair, finally standing, slowly, unsteadily, like a man who just realized arrogance wasn't a personality trait, but a medical condition. Our eyes met. For the first time, I saw it. Shame. Actual, genuine shame. And that, more than applause, more than old film reels, was a true performance of the evening. I slipped toward the bar, suddenly desperate for something familiar, something grounding. Antonio's battered coffee pot, steam rising, bitter and strong, the smell of reality. Then came a voice, smooth as ever, dipped in nostalgia. "James Collins, you magnificent old fraud." I turned, and there he was, Frank Morgan. Same silver hair, same smug grin, same suit that probably cost more than my car. "Frank." I nearly spilled my coffee. "What are you doing here?" "Your daughter invited me weeks ago," he said, eyes twinkling. Didn't mention it was the James Collins. Imagine my shock, walking in to find you hiding behind a serving tray. "I'm not hiding," I muttered. "I'm working." Frank laughed. "Working? James, do you even know what's happened with your films? Atlantic Crossing plays on retro channels every month. Complete cult classic. Film students worship it. Of course they do. I traded in immortality for mortgage payments. And now, apparently, I'm some kind of underground legend who's been rediscovered in the middle of a wedding buffet. Apparently, while I've been perfecting the noble art of balancing champagne flutes and dodging tipsy uncles, people out there were still dissecting films I made 3 decades ago. Shocking, I know. Turns out my legacy is a man who once dropped an entire tray of canapes, but forgotten actor now ripe for documentary exploitation. Frank beamed at me like he'd just discovered fire. "There's talk of a documentary. Your name comes up constantly. How marvelous. 30 years ago I was a rising star, and now I'm a cautionary tale sandwiched between Where Are They Now? Segments and cat videos. My life is here now," I said, gesturing at the room full of drunk bankers and overpriced floor arrangements. "Family. Work that matters." Frank squinted at me as if I just claimed to be fulfilled scrubbing grease traps. "You're really content, aren't you? Serving tables instead of commanding stages." "Yes, Frank. Truly. Nothing screams inner peace like reeking of garlic bread at midnight." Through the doorway, I saw Sophia glowing, laughing with her guests. Michael, meanwhile, looked like someone had unplugged his ego and forgotten to charge it back up. More than content, I told Frank. Fulfilled in ways I never was on stage. Translation: it's amazing what being able to pay rent does for the soul. "But James," Frank insisted, "character actors are in demand. You could come back. You're not even tempted." I sipped my coffee, which at that point tasted suspiciously like burnt rubber, and let the silence answer for me. Success, I finally said, isn't measured in spotlights. It's measured in the love of the people who matter. Frank looked at Sophia, and sighed. She doesn't even know how big you were, does she? She knows I love her. The rest is just background noise. Frank chuckled. James Collins, the philosopher. At least he said it with respect, not the usual undertone of, oh God, he's gone soft. We stood there, two fossils from the same quarry, comparing our cracks. Frank with his expensive suit and career connections, me with my coffee, dodgy knees, and a daughter who thinks I hung the moon. One of us was happy. Spoiler, not him. The offer stands, he murmured. If you want back in, I know people. I appreciate that, I said, but the curtains closed, Frank. And for once, he believed me. Across the room, Michael was finally upright. His swagger had been replaced with something heavier, something resembling, oh God, was that humility? The poor man must have pulled a muscle. I should get back, I told Frank. Family obligations. Frank squeezed my shoulder. For what it's worth, you made the right choice. That daughter of yours looks at you like you've single-handedly kept the sun in orbit. As Frank melted back in the crowd, I finished my coffee, bracing for whatever fresh nonsense was next. Michael approached the microphone. Yes, that microphone. The one he'd used earlier to publicly humiliate me. The room hushed. Phones were lowered. Even the kitchen staff froze mid-scrub, sensing drama. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael began, voice wobbling like a bad Wi-Fi signal. Earlier tonight, I said things that were inexcusable. You don't say. I want to apologize, especially to James. Gasps. Silence. Somewhere, a fork actually clattered. He went on, words catching like a man allergic to sincerity. I judge him by income, by status. But he's more than a waiter. He's a wonderful father, a man of character. He gave up fame to raise his daughter with love and dedication. Yes, go on, bury yourself deeper. I was wrong, completely wrong. His eyes locked on mine, trembling with the effort of admitting he'd been an arse. James, if you'll accept it, I'd like to start over. Not as embarrassing father-in-law I tried to hide, but as Sophia's beloved father, honored in our family. The entire room turned to me, breaths held. Theatrics, always theatrics. I walked toward the head table, calm as a man heading for his tax audit. Sophia's tears streamed as if she'd been auditioning for a Nicholas Sparks adaptation. Thank you, Michael. I said evenly, family is what matters. Everything else is noise. I extended my hand. He grabbed it with both of his like a drowning man clutching driftwood. I'm sorry, he whispered, just loud enough for eavesdropping guests to eat up. I was threatened by your bond with Sophia. Scared you'd make me look small. You did that yourself, I said, with all the gentleness of a brick through a window. But we can move forward. Sophia floated toward us, dressed billowing like she'd just been cued by a stage manager. The audience held its collective breath. And there it was, family drama wrapped neatly in a bow. Except nothing in life is neat. Not really. Sophia threw her arms around the both of us, creating what can only be described as the world's most awkward family hug. 10 minutes ago, she was crying mascara rivers. Now it was a Hallmark commercial. Emotional whiplash. It's a family tradition. I love you both, she sobbed, but in that shiny, joyful way that makes people clap like trained seals. And clap they did. This time it wasn't the fake kind of applause you give to avoid looking heartless, but actual genuine cheer. Miracles do happen, apparently only after public humiliation, but still. Glasses were raised. Toast shouted. Antonio shuffled out of the kitchen with a grin, so smug it could have been bottled and sold as vindication. 20 years of friendship, and the man finally got his I told you so moment without even opening his mouth. Michael, not content with merely crashing one microphone speech tonight, went in for round 2. He cleared his throat, this time managing not to drip condescension all over the carpet. Tonight was supposed to be about love and new beginnings, he said, finally grasping the concept that weddings usually are. It took me too long to realize love includes honoring the people who shaped the woman I'm lucky enough to marry. Translation. Sorry for being a colossal prat earlier. He raised his champagne glass and delivered the line as if rehearsed in front of the bathroom mirror. To James Collins, actor, father, and the man who taught my wife that true success means putting family first. Well, that'll look good on a mug. The toast rippled around the room, glasses clinking like a symphony of redemption. The celebration, once all about money, floral centerpieces, and power plays, had transformed into something almost meaningful. Who knew? Sophia took my arm as the dinner wound down. Would you honor me with the father-daughter dance, Dad? Always. I said, because what else do you say when your daughter asks you that in front of 200 people holding iPhones? On to the dance floor we went. I caught my reflection in the mirrors. Still the waiter's vest, still the bow tie. But suddenly, I didn't look like the help anymore. I looked like, well, me, a father, dancing with his daughter. And honestly, that beat any standing ovation I'd ever had. The music played, Sophia spun. The guests circled us like worshippers at some sacred rite. And for once, Michael wasn't sneering. He was smiling. And for the first time tonight, it looked like the real thing, from the edge of the crowd. Frank raised his glass at me, a silent salute, from one relic of the stage to another. He, the man who stayed, and me, the man who walked away, and somehow ended up with the better role. And there it was, love over fame, family over ego, meaning over madness. God help me, it almost made sense. He's just a waiter. Yes, that's what my darling son-in-law announced to the wedding guests, finger jabbing at me like I crawled out from under his mahogany dining table. A shadow, a background extra, in the glossy blockbuster of his life. The guests nodded along, sipping their champagne with the smug satisfaction of people who've never had to Google, can you eat instant noodles 3 times a day without dying? I kept pouring, silently, because that's what shadows do, apparently. And then, oh, the irony, someone piped up. My God, he's on TV. Cue record scratch. My son-in-law, the human embodiment of a LinkedIn profile, actually dropped his champagne glass. The crash was delicious. That was the moment everything shifted. But hang on, before I drag you further into this emotional car crash, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, leave a comment about which country you're listening from, and let's keep feeding the algorithm that rules our miserable lives. Anyway, back to the gift box in my hands, which somehow weighed about the same as my dignity at that point. Unbearable. Michael's marble foyer stretched before me like the entrance to some billionaire's museum, all sharp edges and colder than his personality. Sophia emerged, smiling that brittle little smile of someone who's trying very hard not to admit they've made a questionable life choice. Dad, you made it. Kiss on the cheek, eyes flicking to the box. What's that? Grandfather's watch, I said, though my throat was dry enough to sandpaper a plank. Something old, something meaningful. God forbid we inject sentiment into Michael's world of receipts and profit margins. Enter Michael. Of course. Wine glass in hand. Posture so stiff, he could have been carved out of marble himself. His eyes scanned me like a customs officer deciding if I was smuggling cheap cologne into his house. James, he said, handshake like a limp lettuce. Still at that Italian place? Bella Vista. Yes, I kept it level. Antonio's been good to me. HM. He looked at my khakis like they'd personally offended him. Then his eyes landed on the gift. What's in the box? As if I'd turned up a bomb instead of family heirloom. Sophia lit up. Grandpa's watch. Bounce on her toes. Bless her. I unwrapped it carefully. Gold polished, history in my palm. She gasped. Michael didn't. He glanced once, shrugged. Vintage. Probably worth something to a collector. I swear my ancestors rolled in their graves. So hard we nearly had a family earthquake. But before I could retort, Aunt Mary shouted, dinner's ready. Because every family crisis is best served with side dishes and awkward silence. We sat. The table sparkled with crystal glasses and chandeliers that looked like they'd been imported straight from Versailles. I tried conversation, like an idiot. The wedding must be exciting. How many guests? Michael, sawing his steak like it was a corporate acquisition. We're keeping it intimate. Close friends. Professional associates. Sophia, my colleagues from the firm. Michael, my business partners. Me, family, of course.